Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about strategies, tips, share techniques, and success stories, all built around building financial literacy and increasing access to capital. Here on my shared screen, you should see a split. On the left, we have the quote of the day. And if you're not familiar with Ari Emanuel, you may want to look him up. What an incredible success story, a very innovative leader. And his quote is, I have never cared what something costs, I care what it's worth. And that's a pretty powerful quote, isn't it? Because to determine if something is a good deal or a bad deal, it's less about emotion, it's more about a fact. Is it worth equal or more than the selling price? Let's go ahead and optimize the screen. I'm sharing 4weekfunding.com and I'm going to bring up my notes so we can follow along together. So let's start here at the top. So May 27th, 2025, that is today, and we want to start with the universal rule. If we're trying to get money to start or grow a business, we must have a fundable business. So often we talk to very smart, very talented, very motivated entrepreneurs, but they overlook this basic fact. It's like, I want money, I need money. So the logical question we would ask is, well, do you have a fundable business? In some cases, they don't even know what that means, but in many cases, they don't. And that's the barrier. People will say, oh, no, my credit's bad, I can't get funding. Credit's not going to be an issue of getting business funding. Credit's fluid, credit doesn't have a memory. There are plenty of resources, including free resources, to help with credit. So, no, the reason that we can't get funding is not because of personal credit. It's typically because we do not have a fundable business. Now, furthermore, there's two ways to resolve that problem. If the problem is I can't get money because I don't have a fundable business, there's two ways to resolve it. We can either build a fundable business, which we're going to be talking about today, or we can buy one. We've had numerous trainings in the past weeks and months talking about fundable shelf corps. Great, because instead of going and building one, which we'll be talking about today, you can just simply acquire one. You can acquire a business that's already fundable. So that remains an option, but it's not a great option for everyone because, to no surprise, it's more expensive to buy one than it is to build one. So today we're going to focus on the option of building a fundable business. So our agenda has a few points. We want to make sure that everyone understands how the 4-week business funding program works, how it came about, and just briefly, since we're on the bullet, this used to be a college credit earning class that myself and others taught. So students would have to register for the college, community college granted. They'd have to enroll in the class. They'd have to pay the 3 credit hours of tuition. They would have to purchase a book. And we went through and we would teach them how to have a fundable business, but we would apply that. So it's not a class, it's not an educational event. It's specifically, what do we need? And now let's do it. What do we need? And now let's do it. Let's apply it. So we're going to cover that on today's brief Zoom. We want everyone to understand that we are administering a grant. As a 501c3 nonprofit, we're administering a grant. And there's numerous benefits from that, but one of which is a $10,000 allocation to start a new business. So we'll be covering that. We want to understand that if we have a fundable business, then it's guaranteed to get funding. It's like a recipe. If you wanted to make chocolate chip cookies, if you have A, the ingredients, very important, and B, the recipe, if you follow the recipe with those ingredients, you will have the chocolate chip cookies you envision. Well, I know we're not talking about cookies, we're talking about business funding, but the concept is the same. So through the grant, we're actually literally able to guarantee that it works because we've got the recipe and we're providing the ingredients. So we'll be talking about that. And as I hinted towards here on this bullet or this line, there are pros and cons of the two different options, but we can't choose none of the above. If we want business funding, we need to have a fundable business. That's a fact. So, with that, should we build or should we buy one? So, we'll speak to that a bit. And then, lastly, we want to make sure that you know about our referral program. We're not MLM, we're not network marketing, there's nothing you have to buy or pay. But we are looking to enroll more people in the 4 week business funding program, and you can actually receive $500 for referring each one. So those are our 5 points of agenda. At any time, again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type those into the Q&A. All right, introductory statement. Our 501c3 nonprofit has received a national grant to assist entrepreneurs in creating a fundable business. So here we're talking about building. We're not talking about buying. We also facilitate shelf corps, but that's not our focus today. We're going to talk about the build process. Now, when we're building a fundable business, it's not as quick. So as we talk about the pros and cons, if you buy a shelf corp, in about 7 days, you're getting a business that's ready to go to funding, ready to use. It's yours. However, if we're going to build one, not that quick. It actually takes right at 30 days. And so here it says in less than a month, but it's a 28-day curriculum that I'll break down for you so you're very clear on what we do and when we do it. It's proven, it's legal, it's reliable. So you remember all of us that are advisors here, we used to actually work for the SBA. So we were consulting with businesses and paid by the SBA as W-2 employees. And then we left the SBA and went into the academic curriculum teaching this and realized this is incredible. What we want to do is help more people, not just the people in the local community college service area. So, what we're offering to do is to help entrepreneurs build a fundable business designed for loan approvals. And again, the funding is guaranteed, that there's no risk of participation. So, we need about 28 days, which we'll go through to build out the fundable business. It's a very structured approach whereby there's specific activities happening each week of 4 weeks, and I'll break that down. So it's not a real loose ad hoc. We're going to have specific deliverables that we're accomplishing each week of the 4 weeks. So if we do that in 28 days, the great news is then we're ready to apply for funding within a month. So, and that's our promise, our guarantee is we'll get the business built in 28 days, and within 30 days, I know some months have 31 days, but within 30 days, we're going to be applying for funding with our preferred SBA 7A lender. All right, so with that, there's just some contact information here, but we're going to get over to the actual website, 4weekfunding.com, and you're always welcome to visit that site directly, but I have it pulled up. So at the top of the page is the general introduction. There's about a 6-minute overview video, probably redundant because of us going through it today, but it's an on-demand 6-minute overview video, and anyone that wants to participate, the green box here. But more importantly, what I want to do is go through what's included. Because if you understand this, it's going to help in two regards. It's going to help you understand what does it take to have a fundable business in general, and then specifically how this grant works. What do we do? When do we do it? And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to type it into the Q&A. So when we put this together, it's designed to be 28 days. We've covered that several times. Everyone will start on a Monday. So we're going to have cohorts. You might remember from business school or law school or your prior academic experiences, a cohort, C-O-H-O-R-T, means a group of students that's doing the same thing at the same amount, same activities at the same time. So we will have a new cohort starting every Monday. So yesterday, which was Memorial Day, we had our first cohort start. So anyone that enrolls today and going forward through Sunday of this week will be in next Mondays. So we start every Monday, and it takes 4 weeks thereafter. What are we going to do in week one? In week one, we're going to build out the business plan and obtain seed capital. Those are technically two different things, so let's talk about each. So the same software that we used at the SBA, so literally the same software that SBA advisors across the country use, we were able to access for the grant participants. So of course, no cost to the grant participant for using that software. And it's a very easy to use online cloud-based software where it essentially gives prompts to the participant, asking them questions, and they will populate what they can. And then, of course, we will help them thereafter. Every once in a while, someone will ask, well, why don't you just build the business plan for me? Well, that's what we call the shelf corp. That's the other option. For people that don't want to build, the shelf corp is a better option. But if we're going to build, then of course the client needs to be involved because the knowledge is in the client or the grant participant's head. We don't know what they're specifically wanting to do. So yes, the participant is involved with this. If the participant doesn't want to be involved, then they're better off buying a fundable shelf corp versus building one. So the business plan, easy to do. The way that the program is set up, it's the way a lot of you probably did your law school program. It's asynchronous, which means that while we're working on certain activities each week, they can be worked on at the grant participant's leisure. So there's not some certain time of the day, certain days of the week that they have to be involved. But there are due dates. So Sunday at noon Central every week is the due date for the given topic. So for example, in week one, we're going to provide them access to the business plan software, the instructions, and they're going to start populating it with their ideas. It has to start with them. If they don't want that amount of involvement, then they need to be over in a fundable shelf corp where we provide them a full business plan. They don't have to lift a finger. So that's the business plan portion. And it can be for whatever type of business they want. It could be for service or a manufacturer. It could be to buy another business. It's unrestricted. So whatever type of business they want. The software is very sophisticated. It's very expensive too, but to us, not to the participant. So it actually pulls in industry references for validation. It's very strong. So that's the business plan portion. Unrelated, but still in week one, we want to get these folks their first round of capital, their first funding very quickly. So we will get them an application, no hard inquiries, and we'll get them offers for initial seed capital right away. So that's what we're doing in week one. Everyone starts on a Monday. The deliverables, so for instance, we're asking them to have completed the application for the seed capital by Sunday, the following Sunday at noon Central, and then we ask them to have their content put in. So again, are we helping them with this? Of course, but it has to start with the knowledge that's in their head. Anyone have questions on week one? All right, Mike is asking. So, what will happen is all the participants will be given a portal, and the portal is where their work products go. So, the business plan software is great. As I mentioned, it's cloud based. We can export out the financial forecast, we can export out in Word or PDF. And so, the participant will be able to export out of that software, put into their portal, and be able to access it at any time thereafter. Good question, Mike. Okay, so week one's pretty clear. Now let's move on to week two. To have a fundable business, we need to have a fundable entity infrastructure, right? So, with that being said, we provide an entity, and there's no charge to the participant, it's covered by the grant, and we provide them a unique business address. So, those are two elements that are needed for a fundable business, and they're included. Now, you might have someone that says, well, I already have an entity. Okay, great. If you already have an entity, and if it's fundable, we can skip all this. You can scroll down and they can go directly to funding. You can see there's a link here and there's a link here. So, someone that already has a fundable business, I'm with you. They don't need to go through this 4-week curriculum, it's a waste of their time. So, on 4weekfunding.com, they can scroll down and they can go right to funding. This link is frankly the same as this link. We can go right to funding if they have a fundable business. Most people don't, and we're continuing to describe what's needed. So the point is, if they already have one business, and if it's fundable, we can proceed immediately. If they have a business and it's not fundable, now we've got to decide what to do. What we would recommend is participate in the grant, allow us to build them a fundable business, use it for the capital raise. That doesn't mean that they can't continue to have or own that other business. So we provide the entity and the business address. Troy's asking, do they get to pick the name of the business? Absolutely. So they'll literally pick the name of the business that they want. Our paralegals will do the filing with the Secretary of State and the EIN for them. So we'll have to take care of the filing and the filing fees. They'll need to pick the name, and week 2 is a little easier. Week 1 is a bit more demanding for the participant. Week 2 is more administrative on our side. Dolores asks about start. Yeah, so we start every Monday. So yesterday's cohort started. So the next class will be starting this coming up Monday. So there's an enrollment period that's open through Sunday. And then we close enrollment on Sunday. And all of those folks start on that Monday, the following Monday. Make sense, Dolores? Okay, so now we have a good plan. We've got some working capital in our pocket. We have ourselves an entity, and we have ourselves a good commercial address. So we kind of have the foundation built now. What do we need to do next? Week 3. What we know is a lot of small business owners lack collateral. Collateral are those assets that are pledged to the lender that in case the borrower doesn't repay, that the lender can recoup and mitigate the risks. So most business loans, working capital loans, are normally set up to be a 10-year, 120-month repayment term. Most require collateral. We know that a lot of entrepreneurs don't have collateral, so we provide it. So we provide $10,000 in the 4-week business funding program. And I mentioned that in the agenda, we provide the 10,000. So that ties over to number 2. So that's going to happen here in week 3. And then the opportunity fund is different. Opportunity fund is different. So this is if they want daily deposits coming in. I want to be perfectly transparent. So where do these daily deposits come from? If they want to help us spread the word and help more people enroll in the business funding program, then they can refer people in and they get $500 each time they do. So let's bring up that agenda because we covered that as number 5. So where does this opportunity fund come? It's by referring others into the 4-week business funding program. So they could get daily deposits every day or some days. It's earned income. I know when I went to graduate school, I didn't have enough money, so I worked for the University of Minnesota. I was there for my MBA and my MHA, which is healthcare administration. I worked 20 hours a week for the university, and they paid me, and they also discounted my tuition. So this is good old-fashioned earned income if they want this. If they don't want earned income, they don't have to. You might say, well, they have their own business. They want to earn income fixing cars or baking cakes. Well, great, but the business isn't funded yet. So if they want income in the meantime, they can receive that by essentially like a work study program if they wish. But regardless, they get the collateral. If they need more than 10,000 collateral, we can provide them as much as needed. So that's our topic on week 3. How much collateral they would need, which is the question that Varney's asking, depends upon their mitigating circumstances. So we will put together a PFS, a personal financial statement, that will show their assets and liabilities. That should be done no later than week 3. In many cases, we'll even try to integrate it in earlier. But the PFS will show what the client, the participant's bringing. We know we're contributing 10,000. Then we have to reconcile that to what type of funding are they looking for? Do they have a shortfall? And if they have a shortfall, we can provide additional collateral. So that gets us to week 4. Well, if it's a 4-week program, we're at the end, right? This is the final. And so this is called the loan packaging. When I worked at the SBA, we did loan packaging for clients. And so what that meant is pulling together the documents. So for example, we have a preferred SBA 7A lender that is really excited about this, that they're ready to accept applications from participants. So they're anxious for these folks to go through the curriculum so we can get them funding through that preferred lender. That preferred lender has delegated to us the loan packaging, which means we work with the client, with the grant participant, to put the documents together so they're already ready for lender review versus the lender having to do that. So that is what we do in week 4, things like the balance sheet and the P&L and so forth. So those are what we're doing in the 4 weeks. And you can also then infer from that, this question of, well, if I need a fundable business, what does that mean? Well, do we have a lender compliant business plan? Do we have liquidity? So it shows that we're not a broke business. Do we have an entity in good standing at the state and federal level? Do we have a good commercial business address? Do we have adequate collateral? Do we have the documents packaged that's needed, such as the balance sheet and P&L? So that's not all that it takes to have a fundable business, but those are the major points. A lot of small businesses don't have that. Therefore, we get to the point of either buying or building. This program is to build. We have shelf corps to buy if they would rather not be involved with the process. So once we get through the 28 days, so again, this is a hard stop. In 28 days, we need to be done with this because the deliverables for each of these are due by noon Sunday of that week. So then we're ready to move on to the next topic. What we don't want to do is have someone enroll and then 6 weeks later, we're still on week 1. That's a no-go. So for 4 weeks, and I see Terrence is asking how much time would a participant need to put in? I would say 4 to 5 hours a week is probably a reasonable assumption for 4 weeks. So what would that be? About 20 hours over a month's time, and then we can work together to have a fundable business. And you might have someone that says, well, I don't have 20 hours. I'm very, very, very busy. That's fine. Then the shelf court might be a better option because it's already built. So you can see there's pros and cons of the buy versus build. But regardless, once we have well, and this is true if someone's getting a shelf court or going through the 4-week process, once we have the fundable business, which is 7 days for the shelf court, 28 days for the build, now we're ready to move forward and go to funding. We have access to literally thousands of business lenders, and we have algorithms that we can use to match each client's file to the right lender. But I did mention earlier, and we've had separate trainings, we do have a preferred SBA lender who's really, really wanting participants that are going through this program. So regardless, we'll get a match to the right lender. I see Tram's asking what type of funding. So we're normally pursuing term loans. Doesn't have to be an SBA loan, but normally we're pursuing term loans, which means installment. No, not business credit cards, but true business loans. Low interest, normally 120-month repayment term is the norm for a larger SBA loan. Ron's asking about amount. The SBA program will go up to 5 million. That doesn't mean that that's a hard cap. Technically, participants could get more than 5 million. However, the SBA guaranteed portion caps out at 5 million. So then we have a summary. What specifically are participants going to get? And of course, this is reiterated. If you click the green button here, I'll go ahead and pull it up. It'll pop up a new screen. That's where someone would actually enroll. And it comes up with the flyer, which restates really what we just went through. And then, of course, the enrollment. So once someone has enrolled, what are they going to get? They're going to get what we discussed, but in a number ordered fashion. They're going to get the free business plan, the seed capital, the business address, the filing with Secretary of State, the 10,000, the opportunity fund, the loan packaging, and then optional, the funding. And it looks like Willie's asking, well, why is this optional? Well, because they don't have to use our lender relationships. That maybe they already have their own lender relationships. So they're not required. Participants in the 4-week program are not required to go into the funding phase with us. If they wanted to take their package and do it on their own, they certainly could. But this is specifically what's included. So what we want today is transparency. So this is what's included. And that's restated in the participation agreement, which is accessed through the green button here. So if it's not on this list, then we don't want to assume that it's included. What's included is here, describe when we do it, and then I can pull the notes back up. So I'll answer any questions you have, but from a resources and contact information, the best thing to do is to text the support line if you have a question. But we've made this simpler than even the Shelf Corp. So if someone wants to go through it, they can make an educated decision. If they want to enroll, they hit the green button, it'll pop up, and they're able to enroll very easily. To email us at support@4weekfunding.com. The website, to no surprise, is 4weekfunding.com. We're on it right now. And if you want to schedule a call, it's calendly.com 4week funding. We have a YouTube channel with our past trainings. So let's go ahead and go through the questions. Jennifer asked about the EIN. So that's right. So each business needs to have an entity that's filed properly and in good standing with the state and federal government. The Secretary of State filing we take care of, and then we'll take care of the EIN filing for them as well if they'd like us to. So that was Jennifer's question. If I missed something there, Jennifer, let me know. Let's see. So Bilal asked about the funding timeline, and that's a fair question. So we have a very clear timeline of how long it takes to build a fundable business. 28 days, we've broken down what we do when. And then if the client wants, the grant participant wants, then we can help them move forward to funding. How long the actual funding takes can vary based upon their mitigating circumstances. What are they looking for the money for? Is it new construction? Is it to acquire a business? Is it just a working capital loan? That can vary. So we'll have a better understanding of this process once we have the data put together from the 4-weekly process. But until then, there's no singular answer because it depends on what they're wanting to do and their circumstances. But in many cases, you can get SBA loans as quick as 15 to 30 days. All right, let's see. So Dr. Smith's asking, I think we covered that, Dr. Smith. So we've got the deliverables that are clearly stated. So what's included is here. It's restated in the client agreement. It's summarized in the training video. All right. Lamont asked how much he can qualify for, and that's a very good question. So what we said is, let's pull it back up. If we want a fundable business, I'm sorry, if we want business funding, we need to have a fundable business. And so Lamont's hitting on a good point. If we wanted $1 trillion, is the qualifications going to be different for $1 trillion than it would be for 100,000? Well, of course, it's almost infinitely more. So there's technically no cap. Once you get above 5 million, it's difficult. I would even say very difficult, not impossible. So Lamont, I don't know if you're looking for more than 5 million, but for most of our participants, we would encourage to consider 5 million or less. Not that that's a hard cap, but it changes the complexity quite a bit for anything over 5 million, because now we've exceeded the SBA guaranteed amount. All right. Jennifer asked about the EIN again. She's kind of fixated on that, which is fine. So we've talked about that. And so, yes, when the EIN is applied for through the IRS, it does ask for who is the business owner and what is the business owner's social security number. And it'll do a reconciliation. Like we were in yesterday processing some of these new deals, and we had a client that mistyped their social security number in on the document when they enrolled. So what happened is the IRS rejected it because the IRS knows, right? They have a database. So you're correct. To get an EIN, it's going to ask for the owner's name and social security number. Can't get around it. That's a rule. Let's see here. Lamey's asking about requirements for overseas businesses. I don't know that there's a difference. So essentially, anyone that wants to participate will come right here and fill it out. If you're interested, as we talked about, in getting paid to refer folks, it's real simple. What we were told from our strategic partners is keep it simple. So everything's on this page. I doubt that many prospective participants will have questions that's not answered on this page. If so, they can come join us for these daily trainings, or they can text the support line. And if you're wanting to refer someone in, refer them here, send us a text, and just let us know the person's name that you referred in, and then you can get the referral fee. Real simple, real simple. So I guess that was Amanda's question. And that was, I think, Tram's question. So Jennifer's back on that EIN. So if they don't have a social security number, well, you can't get an EIN without a social security number. I don't know what to say. That's not my requirement, and it's not probably your requirement, but it is the IRS. Dolores says she's trying to fill this out now. And in some cases, it'll ask if you're enrolling as a business or a client. If there's business questions and you don't have a business yet, just put non-applicable. All right, well, let's kind of wrap this up because I know we've ran long. So in summary, if someone wants a fundable business, wants business funding, they need a fundable business. That's a fact. We have to start with that, because a lot of people want to skip that. Oh, no, no, no. I just want money. I just need money. Well, you have to qualify, and we call that a fundable business. If they already qualify, great. Go right to application, 4weekfunding.com, scroll on down. They can click here or click here. I'll click on either one of them. It'll bring up a page, and we can go right to funding right now. They don't need to wait 4 weeks. They would put their business information in, personal information in, no hard inquiries. So it's perfectly fine if you're interfacing with someone and says, no, I'm ready to go to funding now. I've got a fundable business. Great. But a lot of people don't. So then we get back to the point where we either need to buy or build a fundable business. And the buy is through our shelf corps, and we've got lots of training on that. And then here we're talking about how we go about building one. We've discussed what's included in the 4-week funding program. We've discussed that the 10,000 is included. We reiterated that here and here. So 3 times we've confirmed that. Let's see. We've clarified, I believe, that after the 28 days, because there's 7 days in a week, 7 times 4 takes us to 28. So then we're immediately ready to go to funding if the client wants our help with that. It's not required. We had some very frank discussions that there's pros and cons of a fundable shelf court versus building. If someone's going through this, they're involved. They're going to probably need 4 to 5 hours a week to work with us to accomplish this over a month period. If they say, no, don't want that, then they're much better off to buy a shelf court. Frankly, what I've seen is there's people that want a shelf court that can't afford it. They don't have the money, they don't have the credit worthiness. So the shelf court, it may be that Ferrari they'd really like to have, but if they can't afford it and they can't finance it, then I think we need to really look at this as an alternative for those folks that can't afford and can't finance a shelf court. And then the referral program's crazy simple. You refer them to 4weekfunding.com. They click the green button. They're able to enroll. And all you need to do is just send us a quick text. Let us know, who you are and who you're referred, and we're good to go. So with that being said, thanks everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning, but we hope that you see this as a very valuable resource to help small business owners access funding. And the funding is, in fact, guaranteed, so there's no risk to the participant. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back tomorrow morning. Have a good day. Bye.